feel free to submit those during the webinar at any time. We are excited to have you all here today. Again, my name is Aaron Petrillo. I co-lead the technical assistance work for the Center of Integration of IDEA Data. And today we have Jeff Sellers, who is a core member of our technical assistance team. Jeff?
All right, well, thank you, Aaron. And I do want to welcome everybody to our webinar here, Understanding the Roles of IT and Program Staff During Data Integration. Thank you, Aaron, for the introduction. Again, my name is Jeff Sellers, and I have previously worked in a state education agency and heavily involved with data integration with their P20 Education Data Warehouse, and most recently, over these last few years, have been providing technical assistance to states as they work on their education data systems, both SLDS and other types of data systems. And so today we are going to spend some time talking about the role of IT and program staff, but also to how they can work together to integrate education data. And so with that, if I could get the ball, we'll move this forward here. Thank you. And so some objectives that we have during this webinar. First, we want to understand the roles of information technology and special education or other program staff play in the process of data integration. And again, special education, which is more of a focus for CIID, will be a focus during this webinar, but this would be applicable to any program staff within a state education agency. You know, any the references to federal programs, ELL assessment, migrant education, striving readers, CTE, any of those kinds of programs, the staff that may have data or would be engaged in a project to build a data system or integrate their data into a data system, this will be applicable to them. So references to program staff mean any of those kinds of staffers. We'll be identifying the distinct responsibilities that each IT and program staff have in the process of integrating data, discuss some best practices for successful engagement between IT and program staff, and then learn about peer data integration engagement experiences. And again, we've got Curtis Richardson from the great state of Washington and David Rapp from the great state of Colorado, who is going to also present what they do in their respective states as well. That'll be part of the peer data integration engagement experience. Agenda for today is introduction to this relationship of IT and program offices, staff, and the benefits of working together and how to leverage that relationship. Look at the distinctions between these two offices and what their roles are to help contribute to data integration and really any kind of project that involves program data. Factors for consideration of success and things to consider moving in that may hinder success as well. Then we'll hear from Washington and Colorado. They'll share their stories, and then we'll wrap things up. So we've got a poll question here, just interested in those who have dialed in and attending this webinar. What role do you currently play in the data integration effort in your SEA? And if you look to the right, you will see this poll and an opportunity that you can answer, either data steward, project manager, IT staff person, special education or other programs office staff, or business analyst. And again, if you're not integrating data right now, what role might you play when it comes to that effort within your state? So if you will answer that, and we will look and see what the results are, those who are attending our webinar here. And with that, the responses. Anybody got a good joke while we wait? Oh, and there you go. And so we see that we have a lot of data stewards and project managers attending here, also program office staff. So those tend to be our largest grouping of our audience here. So that's good. We got a good mix of different ones attending here. Next poll question. How closely or regularly do program and IT staff work together on current data systems in your SEA? So how well is that arrangement within your state? Do they work closely during regular scheduled meetings that occur on a weekly or monthly basis, or even just a regular basis, whatever that schedule may be? Do they work together occasionally in meetings scheduled when necessary, or not that close at all, and meetings occur rarely? So again, to the right-hand side of the screen is responses to the poll. So if you can pick A, B, or C, and your state will not be highlighted depending on which one you pick. And then we will have the results of that come up, just to kind of see, again, to get a gauge of how well or any kind of challenges you may have within your state of those who are attending the webinar here. So with that, it looks like a vast majority of those who responded work closely on a regular basis, so that's good. And then second is that there's occasional meetings, so it looks like there is already established relationships within your states for those who have responded, and that's encouraging. So thank you for that. So as we move into this next piece of the presentation, just want to remind everybody that if you do have questions, on the right-hand side there's a Q&A box that you can enter your question in, and we will collect those and respond to those throughout our presentation here. So with that, just in a means of introduction, just want to state the obvious that data integration involves multiple partners with multiple roles. And two of the most important of the types of players when it comes to data integration, and again, in a broad sense, any kind of data project, data system project, but specifically around data integration, two of those main players are the program office staff and IT staff. So as we go through this presentation today, we are looking to answer some of these questions here. Look to what are the roles of program office staff and IT staff, and how do those roles differ? What distinguishes the two of them? And then really the main point I want to make is, so how can these roles complement each other in the support and success of data integration? All too often they tend to conflict with each other, and so we want to really highlight what these roles are, how they are different, but again, they can complement each other as you move forward in working with data integration projects. To start with, just looking at a generic high-level look at the IT role when it comes to data integration. There are three broad categories here: IT standards, services, and support. And so under the standards category, you have a database platform, operating system, and infrastructure. And really what that means is your IT office should have established standards that relate to these three areas. Now, there'll be other standards as well. You'll have coding standards or documentation standards, other kind of stuff like that. But as far as what would play a role and help inform the discussion around integrating data, these three areas will be important for this discussion to be had as you are having. It will impact how the application, how this integration will take place, established in these different areas. Also, we'll looking at the services that IT staff, the IT office provides. Requirements gathering, this is good for them to facilitate this process so that they have a clear understanding of what the requirements are for this this project itself and how the data will get integrated. They will be providing tool expertise depending on what kind of tools are needed, if it's business intelligence, what kind of reporting requirements are there, how the data will be integrated, that whole process there. They are the experts when it comes to how that will work, and it's their responsibility to make sure they have the expertise needed to do that. And then to respond in a timely manner. And really that, the timeliness there is really dependent on how the project is being managed and what those agreed upon expectations are on their responsiveness. And then the support they provide, project management is a big piece of that support, and both Curtis and David have played a big role within their states when it comes to project management, and also too when it comes to the development of the application. Again, the whole process of data integrating, what it means for that to occur and how this data will be presented via these applications, it's their responsibility to be able to develop that process so that the data can be integrated and provided as needed. On the program office side, two main categories here under content knowledge and subject matter expertise. The program office, those staff are those who understand what the program is all about. They bring to the table their experience with the program and knowledge of the program. They are typically much more engaged with the LEAs, the school districts, because these programs that are being implemented down at the district and school level, they oversee and support the LEAs in that process. And then they have the knowledge when it comes to both federal and state expectations with around this program, the program area, the content of that program. And so, and for the most part, we've been speaking specifically related to federal programs that are within a state agency, but many times states will engage at that state level to leverage the data that the state has collected. And so there may be additional requirements, additional uses. They see this data as a resource. And so that may have also facilitated why they even start looking at the option of data integration. And so there are state expectations as well that the program office should bring knowledge and content to the table as this discussion is being had. And then subject matter expertise, they define the requirements when it comes to what is needed by this integration of the data and how the data will be used. They have this understanding of stakeholders and customer needs because of their knowledge of the program. And those stakeholders may be the LEAs, depending on if this data will be provided back to them, or it may be state-level policymakers who want to look at the data from a broader or different perspective, and that's why you are integrating the data. And so they have that subject matter expertise, the program staff. And then also data management, data definitions. This is an understanding of what these data elements are, what their definitions are, data management, how this data gets collected, how it gets accessed and used, what makes sense in the way it's being presented. And again, the program office, they have that better understanding of data quality, issues around data quality as well. And so even though both IT and program staff have a broad array of responsibilities when it comes to these projects and integrating data, both there's little overlap, so there is they have that opportunity to complement each other moving forward. Just some potential barriers that come to play whenever states are looking to work together between program offices and IT, the IT office. One is conflicting priorities and insufficient resources, and these tend to kind of be hand in hand many times. If, just for an example, if the program office may have a high priority to get this work done, but the IT office has challenges in the availability of a business analyst or a programmer, whatever the case may be, then that can create a barrier to working together, especially if the program office may have resources and funding that they can go outside the IT office. And so there's that rub that can create a problem there. There may be no formal project management or even data governance definitions in place. So there has been no intentional effort to put in place a formal process to follow as you work through a project. And those definitions of roles and responsibilities haven't been set up yet. There may be misunderstanding of roles. There may be assumption on one party or the other that they have more responsibility than really what should be granted them. So misunderstanding of those roles. Maybe a lack of sufficient interaction, just like how many data systems within SEAs are developed in silos. Many times our work environment and office organization is siloed as well. So there may not be understanding between each of these offices. And so that lack of interaction. Some states, there's what kind of adds some challenge to that is also there may be a central state technology office that's not within the agency, and so that at times can even make that further disconnect between program staff and the IT staff that need to be engaged there. So there are different reasons for that, or poorly defined requirements or purpose for the data integration. Why there's not clarity on why you're actually doing this project. There's not clarity on the advantages of integrating this data, and so with that, there's you start having in a way that starts to heighten the conflicting priorities and actually create a disinterest in the project as well, because there's not clarity in why you're actually doing this project. So next slide, we're going to look at some best practices, but again, just to remind everyone that if you do have questions about anything I have to say here or about what our presenters have to say, to enter that in the Q&A box. Again, that's located on the right-hand side of the screen. And so some best practices. Yes.
Can you just go back one slide? When you put in, or when you talked about the last bullet there in terms of establishing the requirements or purpose for data integration, is there an ideal time in which both IT and program staff should come to that definition? Is that explicitly at the beginning of the project, or Is there a point throughout the data integration process that you should make sure to stop and ensure both teams are aligned?
That is a great question, Aaron, and I would say yes.
Yes to both?
Yep. It is. This is a discussion to be had as you kick things off, and again, it helps define scope and making sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to why you are doing this, and that there's clear understanding to that. And to your point, throughout the project, and again, as Curtis and David have their opportunities to present, I would say that it's the project manager, but in general, there needs to, through those regular interactions between IT and program staff, to make sure that they have not veered off course and that they are continuing in the direction that was originally laid out, or there is agreement in that there's going to be a change. But again, that's being intentional and not in making sure everyone has understanding on the front end and not just assuming that we'll just figure it out as we go. Very good. Any other questions or anything? All right. With that, some best practices and things to consider when it comes to this interaction between IT and program staff. And this really, for the most part, is we just touched on this, having well-defined and clear understanding of roles and responsibilities from the very beginning. And again, having a standard project management process laid out and a standard data governance process laid out will help facilitate this and really make this more of a natural process that will be much smoother as you engage with a project such as this. Also, too, early, if not day one, at least early on, determine how sustainability will be managed for this project. And this is in the context of both the funding support, but also personnel and other areas that many times a project may get an initial allocation to make an enhancement or an initial deployment, or in subject here about integrating data. But even though the cost to maintain that down the road is going to be less, there's still a potential of additional cost or personnel that's needed to support it. So having that determination on the front end will help give you more time to plan for that. And again, assumption can be the enemy here. The program office may assume that the IT office will just be able to subsume the support of this with their other projects, and the IT office may be assuming that, well, since the program office initiated this project, that they will be able to support it after the initial development. And again, that will get you in trouble. Having a very candid discussion about that on the front end and putting a plan in place is important. Also, too, having direction and support from agency leadership is very important. And again, hopefully they may have been the ones, if they did not initiate this discussion, that they will be heavily engaged throughout the project itself. And so having their support and direction will also help when it comes to staying this long term and how you do this. And then identifying an interpreter/translator. And really this is intended to, all you IT folks on the phone and all you program office folks on the phone, I don't mean to step on any toes, but I know if you've been on the program side and you've talked to an IT person, they have a tendency to veer off on a whole nother language when it comes to IT lingo. But also in the same vein, there are very specific, not IT technical, but program technical jargon that can be used that would make sense within a given program office, but would have little meaning outside the program office. And so there's different languages, different jargon, different lingo that takes place within these two entities that is not necessarily intuitive when it comes to understanding. And so having someone that either has experience in both the IT and the program areas that can lend a hand in interpreting and translating what is being said, or someone who can actually facilitate the discussion to whenever references that are not understood by both areas are used, that they will bring the discussion back around and help everyone understand what that means. All too often there are discussions that are had and everybody has the best intention, but people made assumptions or conclusions based on stuff that they didn't understand based on the language that was being used. And so making sure that gets addressed while you are having these regular interactions between IT and program folk is critical, so that so it'll minimize misunderstanding. Also, too, having that regularly scheduled project meetings to review assignment status, challenges, resolutions, and again, just making sure that there is a regular interaction going on, so that when there are challenges, issues that are raised, they can be raised early and have more time to be addressed. And then good project management practices. And again, we'll hear more about that from both Curtis and David as we hear from them. So with that, I want to introduce Curtis Richardson, Program Management Office Director at the Washington Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. And again, just to remind everybody, as Curtis gets kicked off here, that if you do have any questions, to enter them in the Q&A box located on the right-hand side of the screen. So Curtis, take it away.
Hello, I'm Curtis Richardson. As introduced, the PMO Director. I think that today I'm going to have a conversation about 4 areas. One is technology governance, basically how information technology is governed, because I think that helps understand how things are put together. And then data governance and how that works, and some ideas of how we do it here at Washington State. The roles that I see are important as part of the data integration, and then getting data in and out, because that's really what it's all about. If you aren't moving data, it's not flowing, it's like water. No one survives. So the first part is technology governance. And the thing about technology governance is that governance is a decision-making framework, right, that aligns the service and priorities of IT with the business, helps us manage the risk and compliance for the business, and ensures that projects and operations are cost-effective for the business. And the key here is that everything is done for the business. Everything should be aligned with, comply with, and managed so that the business can be effective. So the diagram I'm showing here has enterprise architecture as an overarching type of governance that helps us understand and guide the design and kind of evolution of the technology, so that we have a blueprint, a way to actually help the programs increase their efficiency and capabilities. And again, without this connection between the business and technology, there's no survival. So the business architecture is a blueprint for program processes, the organization and people. The application architecture has to do with the blueprint for secure services provided by applications and systems. And then the data architecture, strategic blueprint for data, information, and its privacy. I do see a difference between data and information. I'll touch on that a little bit later. And then the strategic blueprint for technology has to do with hardware, software, network, and the related security. So for me, the difference between data and information is data is that raw information that's being moved through the system, and then analysts take that information and turn it, or take that data, excuse me, and turn it into information that can actually be used to either make business decisions, guide policy, or do anything that, you know, improves the business. The blue boxes on the right show some of the data governance groups that we have at Washington State. So for data leadership, it has program leaders, it has technology leaders, and in that meeting we talk about the responsibilities and how things are going to be designed and the use of the information. So, and this is particular to OSPI, information technology. And then we have a service review group. This service review group is composed of mainly technology folks, and we bring in program folks when their programs are affected or when services will affect the agency. And the idea is we talk about how to align the technology with the business need, and then what the quality of our services are that we deliver. Then we have SLDS governance, which we're kind of rebranding our SLDS to data warehouse so that we can make a distinction between our other data systems. But the data warehouse, we have a group that gets together. It hasn't been that frequent lately, but we do like to have conversations with the program. And this helps us understand what data and technologies are going to be used in regards to the data warehouse, in particular technical components like the architecture, the data architecture, and making sure that it's set in a way that works for bringing in data from our operational systems. And our operational systems are the CIIDers systems. Those CIIDer systems bring in student information, and then we have a governance group for that. And they're composed of technology teams along with program teams, and they talk about the technical components of the operational data, such as district submissions, the timing of that, what data they're collecting, and those sorts of things. Then we have the standards group, and the standards group is responsible for making sure that information technology standards are set across the organization. So we typically have folks from procurement, communications, program staff, folks who are making a request, and technology teams to try and coordinate the use of technology across the agency. So that helps us prevent software incompatibilities and reduce duplication. And that's how we kind of govern our technology area. And those 4 blocks on the left are from the Open Group Architecture Framework, TOGAF. We use that as kind of our framework for the enterprise architecture. And the groups on the right, that's how we try and implement and have discussions around those areas. So I'd like to talk a little bit about data governance in the state, and then I'll drill down just a little bit into data governance at OSPI. In 2007, we were lucky enough that the Washington State Legislature set up a program to do state K-12 data governance. And as we did the state K-12 data governance, they discovered that it really wasn't enough and that they needed to better understand and connect other agencies to this data, because they could see the student from preschool and they wanted to see how that would work all the way through to the work environment. So they created, in 2009, they created the state P20 data governance, which connects other state agencies, and of course K-12 is part of that, and then they connected other state agencies like Department of Early Learning and some others. But the idea is to get all these folks together and determine what data elements and direction we're going to go for the state. And then they try and set that standard. And as they do, that comes down and gets filtered into OSPI as a data collection that needs to happen. And we have a K-12 data governance team here in OSPI, and it's centered around the CIIDers group that I showed you earlier. They talk about how it's actually working and how that data is being used. And if there's any issues, then they actually send that up as application development, and folks are talking about the data governance. And that data governance controls or guides the information for district submissions into the CIIDers system. And then the OSPI application development area, they have application development, but they also provide application support for the folks in the district. So those collections happen out in the district and it flows up, and then the data governance, they decide every year what changes, what items need to be corrected, and how they're going to collect that data to make it work for the state. We have sort of the same thing in educator data. The thing about educator data is that we don't have the same type of governance structure set up for that. We do have a person who's in charge of the certification office who's currently serving as a data steward or data owner for educator data. They have a certification system for educators where they collect information about all those educators out there and their qualifications. And the OSPI application development team, they work with that system as well. So the same process, collections are determined at the governance level, and then as they're working through collecting that information, issues that come up get sent up through those channels so that everyone can be aware and they can work on those and make decisions around how to make that data available as efficiently as possible. The roles in data integration, I wanted to give you a high-level look, and then I'll talk about the particular types of folks that we have assigned to do work. But the overall picture is the state K-12 data governance, again, decides what data elements are to be collected. And that's the role of that data governance team, is to give guidance to what information and data will be collected in the state and how it will be used. Then we have the OSPI K-12 data governance. As I've said before, they have detailed discussions about what data is being collected, how well it's working, what problems there are, and they work together. Now remember, that's technology and program staff doing that together. And then for the technology, we have the student data systems, where we have developers, we have data analysts, we have business analysts, and those sort of folks who kind of look at the data, figure out what it is, and get it into the right place and make the applications work the way they're supposed to. And then the programs have data analysts, data stewards, data owners who use that data from the systems for program use, whether that's policy decisions or trying to figure out, what students are doing well or poor, and how to reduce our levels of student movement around a state. So some of the typical roles that we have in Washington State, we have program directors who serve on the K-12 data governance team, the state K-12 data governance team. We have data owners and data stewards who serve at the student data governance level. And then we have data analysts and business analysts who serve on the technology level with the student data systems and the statewide longitudinal data system. And then we have architects and developers who work with the program, and then the architect works to establish and connect everything together between the technology folks and the program folks. One of the things that we have found is it's really helpful to have some sort of tracking system where you can take in requests and understand what your demand is, because without understanding your demand, it's hard to actually meet the need. So with the tracking system, it really gives you a base to work off of. And while we're talking about demand and staffing, one of the things that we also did was we had Gartner Group come in and do an assessment of our staffing levels. And what they found was, and this was in fiscal year 2013, they found that OSPI spending was lower than our peers for technology management. We were spending about $4.5 million, and what they discovered was our peers were spending about $5.5 million. So we're $1 million behind, which means you're not staffed at the right level. And in fiscal year 2013, they thought the need would go up to $6.8 million for a spend. And the reason I'm sharing this is because it starts to show what typically happens in IT is a disparity in the amount of people that you need to deliver these services as they become more complex and as you gain additional systems as you move over time. And OSPI had 38 staff and were about 4 FTEs lower. Our peers were at 42 staff. But they had projected it would go up to 51. So that would be a significant difference. If the state doesn't add any additional resources, we would be severely behind by fiscal year 2014. They had some key recommendations that I think would probably help most data integration or IT shops and businesses or programs trying to integrate data, and that is make sure that you obtain the additional funding that you need to get to the proper resource levels, and then ensure that you take a disciplined approach to managing and planning your resources, both staff and technical components. Their last recommendation was to monitor the backlog and service quality so that you understand what level you're delivering service at and make sure it's consistent with what your business needs are. So my last slide is about getting data in and out of the systems. And I'd like to share what we have recently discovered or kind of come to the realization of that would help us move data in and out of our system a little bit easier. Right now, we have our district operations. Folks out in the districts are doing their work. We ask them for data. They submit that data, and then that data comes into our student data systems. Then we try and take that data, customize it so that it fits into the statewide longitudinal data system, our data warehouse. Then we try and say, okay, now that the system's in a data warehouse, let's create a report for that. One of the things that really helped, we had a consultant come in from IBM, and they recommended that we switch the model around. Instead of trying to get data from the districts and kind of pushing it into the data warehouse, they recommended going from the report, trying to figure out what report we would need, and then go to our operational data systems, create the queries and information that we need to get from the systems for that, then use that to create how we move data into the data warehouse. And if you'll notice, that means no customization before we go into the data warehouse. And it really has brought a change in our thought pattern and consideration of how data moves into the data warehouse to be presented for use quicker and easier. The goal behind that is if you're able to avoid customization before it goes into the data warehouse, the next year when you have to run the report and it's already based on data that you have and it's in SLDS or in your data warehouse, all you have to do next year is, I'm going to say, click the button and the data loads. So that's our goal for how we're going to try and move data from the districts out to reporting and try and do it faster and more consistent for our program customers. So that's my presentation. I would now like to turn it over to, I'm going to send it back to Jeff.
All right, good, Curtis. Thank you very much. And now I want to introduce David Rapp, who is Project Manager at Colorado Department of Education. And David, I will let you tell your story. And again, just a reminder, if you do have any Q&A, to enter that in the Q&A box to the right-hand side, just in case I forgot to mention that before. And also, David, you can take this till about 5 till, and then we'll have some time for Q&A.
Sounds good. Okay, well, thanks everybody for the opportunity to come and address you all today and tell a little bit about Colorado's SLDS story. Jeff asked me to present on 3 different topics today, and I'll do that in the next several slides. I'm going to try to cover some of the practices that we have in place, how these practices facilitate clear roles and responsibilities, and then just highlight a program or a project example here and how things work here in Colorado. All right, so the first slide I pulled from one of the early SLDS program documents that I found in doing my research, and thought that this is a really good example of our SLDS vision at a real high level. Some of the themes that you'll see in here include, governance, and whether it's at an advisory level or at a real local level with a user group. The other things that you'll find in here is kind of how we do SLDS here with capturing data and then linking data, providing data to those program people so that they can perform and make data-driven decisions. The next slide here is a little bit more of the how view of our SLDS program. Obviously, the theme here at the top, the capturing the data, linking data, providing or reporting on that data, and then ultimately getting into the hands of program people and policymakers so that they can make information, I guess I'll try to stick to Curtis's theme of earlier, information-based decisions that are meaningful. This slide also kind of gives you a little bit of insight into the data sources that we're looking at. We're trying to operate across agencies, and the data that we are using in our SLDS reside in different departments and systems. And one of the challenges that we have had in the past and going forward is how to do or how to have data sharing agreements in place that allow us to share data in the first place. And then once we have those in place between agencies, specific use cases or projects or collections, if you will, to gather that data and then present it to the people who are asking for it on the program side. Next slide is just another one of the older organizational chart documents that kind of touches on our themes of governance, and Curtis talked a lot about that in his talk. And but I wanted to point out that you know, in all the slides that we're going to see here, we have this connection between our governance and what we actually do in our SLDS program, capturing data, linking data, providing it to people so that they can ultimately perform and make policy decisions. The next slide here is just another kind of view of governance. At the top here with executives at that decision-making level. We have another layer here that's advisory groups, and which is getting more into the program area, and then focus or user groups that are involved as well. Again, you'll see the themes of capturing and linking throughout the documentation that we have. Next slide is just another is a little bit more on is a transition into our roles and responsibilities topic. And here in Colorado, we had set up a kind of a system where there was going to be our Office of Information Technology was to be involved, but what wound up ultimately happening, just to kind of talk to our lessons learned, was our SLDS system and the system that links data from these different agencies came in-house to CDE, and so we do the capturing and the linking and the providing of the information all within the Department of Education here. These little clouds kind of help note, again, the theme that we are getting data from many different agencies in the state. And another thing that the folks at the beginning of our SLDS program did was they came up with kind of a prescribed RACI for us, and most of you know RACI means responsible is the role for R, A is accountable, I is informed, and C is consulted. But I put this in here because it was clear that the intent was that, as you can see in this box in the top right-hand corner, that the governance folks were going to be involved every step of the way. But then in these other boxes, we were going to have technical folks who are going to be responsible and accountable for a lot of the technical work that takes place as we operationalize our SLDS program. The next slide here is kind of the beginning of the discussion of the Colorado example and a project that we have. Any project or any request for data in our SLDS system kind of goes through this flow, and so I thought I'd start with this and just kind of repeat some of the themes that Jeff and Curtis talked about earlier, where you have identification of the roles of people like business analysts, people who are on governance roles, and people who are in technical roles, and what functions they provide. Having it mapped out for us really helps us move things along efficiently. This slide also kind of shows from data requests all the way to reporting back to the requester, all the things that happen at a high level. So the Early Childhood Participation Project that we're working on right now is, again, pulling together data from different agencies. Of course, CDE here, the Department of Education, our Department of Human Services, and then another part of that program is connecting with Head Start and Early Head Start grantees and delegates to bring their information in to help answer a question about concurrent enrollment of children that are receiving early childhood education and programs and services. So this is where IDA data comes in. Of course, here at CDE we have the Part B part, and Part C data comes from the Department of Human Services. And kind of the output that is going to go into the hands of the program people and those stakeholders that will be kind of that view of the concurrent enrollment for children across all of these different programs. And then finally, because I'm a minute over, just wanted to point out that we, in our project here for the Early Childhood Participation Project, leveraged the RACI that was suggested from the program visionaries for our SLDS program, and took the time to go ahead and identify the roles, whether they be governance roles or whether they be technical roles, who's responsible and accountable for different tasks in different areas. And you'll see that in the technical area in this box on the right, this is where a lot of our technical work is done, where accountabilities and responsibilities reside. And then other folks who are on the program side and in those higher up on the governance chain, if you will, get involved in terms of being consulted and informed. And so, sorry I went a couple minutes over there, Jeff, but I'll turn it back to you at this point.
Oh,
thanks.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it, and thank you again, Curtis, as well. So just to wrap things up, again, appreciate your participation and attendance in this webinar today. And again, we've heard from both presenters the need to have structure in place, have an organization in place that really foster and presents this organization around roles and responsibilities and understanding there as well. If you have any other questions or anything, we will post them answers to those along with the webinar posting when we post that. And so with that, and really haven't had very many questions so far, but really want to, if you do have questions, to let us know. Also, too, from CIID perspective, we can, if you're interested in establishing more structure and organization or how to help foster IT and program staff working together, we can help facilitate those discussions. We'd be glad to come in and support your work in that area. We also have a technical assistance toolkit and resources that help support data integration. And so, again, all that is available on our website. So with that, I will turn it back over to Aaron.
Thanks, Jeff. And I think just in the final minute, we wanted to note here, I mean, just to echo Jeff's point around support that we can provide, actually a few minutes, there you go, and around working between your IT and program teams to bring them together and have a better vision for integration work that you're planning. We just encourage you to reach out to us. We're happy to provide direct support to your states as well as connect you with peers, and, like we've heard today from Curtis and David, and help take advantage of some of the resources that they may have developed or used within their states as well. We certainly ask you all to, if you can, to fill out the evaluation survey, which is linked in the chat as well. It'll pop up when you close the screen today. And for the questions that we received during the call that we haven't directly answered, we'll certainly try to respond to those in our webinar posting on our TA page on the next slide. And if you have any questions, feel free to email myself or Jeff directly, or the CIID team address, and we're happy to connect with you and talk through any challenges or opportunities within the state where CIID may be able to help. So with that, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you all very much, especially David, Curtis, and Jeff for today, and thank you all very much. Appreciate it.